Gabriel Iglesias once said you can't just go on YouTube and copy other people's routines. I mean, creativity comes from the heart. That'd be like if you went out and made a Kickstarter based on some old spoons. I mean, not only do you look like a fool, but once you're caught, that's the worst that can happen. Kickstarter is an amazing yet scary place when it comes to new products. As for most people, it's their first time paying for something that may not even end up existing. No matter what, I believe it's a necessary and useful thing for up-and-coming inventors. And recently, this website hosted a project by famous YouTube animator James Rowson. And by recently, I mean months ago, and by project, I mean board game. Now, I've been following this rabbit hole for quite a while now, and I'm excitedly disappointed in how it all turned out. This is the story of James Rowson and Can't Catch Harry. The tale of a shoddy board game that came from someone else's mind. But what isn't shoddy is today's sponsor, which, coincidentally enough, was also a Kickstarter item. The simplicity of this wallet made me look into what I was actually using, and I had a lot of junk in my wallet. Made out of a durable elastic band and the metal of your choosing, the ridge replaced my big ol' leather wallet, which for one thing makes me 10% vegan. And for the first time, I can say I now have the option to kill a man with only a wallet. They also sell other products like this wonderfully water-resistant nylon backpack. So for those products, or maybe even these other ones, use my coupon code for 10% off on their website. But enough about this wonderful Kickstarter product. Let's delve into this messy one. The project started all the way back in October of 2018 with his video titled Tabletop Games, where he advertised the funding for his idea.
Introducing Can't Catch Harry. I let my Twitter followers decide on a name and they went with this one, so good job, guys. Here's a sneak peek of some of the cards. I spent a lot of time working on this game and I know you're gonna like it.
Noting that his favorite game is Magic the Gathering, and he was gushing all about games like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon.
My favorite thing about Magic is when Dick Garfield, was first creating the game in 1993.
He instead made a Kickstarter for a party game like Euchre and Spoons? It looks like we're not off to a good start with the Kickstarter, except for the fact that it was successfully funded, and in my opinion, the pledge tiers are fine with what they give. With 4,777 people raising $314,299, I'm actually quite impressed with those numbers. Now you might be thinking, those are some low numbers considering his audience of then 9 million subs. And you're right. However, there are a few factors that we need to look at. Number one, a majority of his audience are, well, kids without credit cards. Number two, since this is Kickstarter, a lot of people would just prefer to wait and see how the product turns out. I mean, it was funded in 10 minutes, so might as well just wait and see what happens from then on. And lastly, if number three, perhaps because of the vagueness of the product, people didn't really trust it. I mean, there were a lot of frequent cancellations, but that of course can be due to any reason. Sometimes, it's just due to a furry. Noting that on the front of his Kickstarter, no one else besides James himself is listed as running the project. The only mention that other people are working on it is the mention of the team. Maybe it's just me, but I'd actually prefer to see who's running the show. However, saying that, if you go to the comment section of the Kickstarter, you do see some collaborators trying to do damage control with the project. We all have the familiar faces from the Odd Ones Out's channel, like James Rowson, Furry, Sandwich Artist, Mr. Poe, and who can forget Ricardo Latte? Sure, James does have a successful merch store, but this is a potential product that you're trying to pitch to new people, and from what I've seen, the team running it are just... Ring J5 asked some good questions, such as, who's on the Odd Ones Out's team that makes them one of the most experienced in the industry? Luckily, one of the collaborators on the Odd Ones Out's official team responded with, I am just a furry, but we try our best. And after that, there was a heated argument between the two until James Rowson himself swooped on in and fixed it all. Except for the fact that Ring J7 ended up canceling their pledge, for whatever reason. Keep up the good work, Odd Ones Out team. Another satisfied customer. On another note, I need to look into why people keep mentioning spoons and the fact that the collaborators seem to be shifting away focus from that question. It doesn't matter. I mean, the project was successfully funded, so there's no reason to go check back on the Kickstarter. And I have the game right here, so how about we open it and see what's in it. For the campaign, I pledged $100 or more, with that more being about 34 USD. I received 2 board game sets, 2 expansion packs, 2 sets of stickers, some holographic cards, a statue, and even a plushie. I also ordered a wood coffin, but I never received it, nor did a lot of other people apparently. So let's just focus on what I received. Starting with the simple stuff, the statue looks quite nice, and so you keep looking at it. There are quite noticeable glue stains on the base, and you can even see where everything is connected. Moving on, the 16-inch plushie was honestly the highlight of the purchase, as it feels very high quality and doesn't smell. And if the Kickstarter was solely about plushies like this one, instead of a board game, I'd highly recommend it. But moving on to the stickers, they're stickers. Moving on, in the board game itself, it actually comes with a nice little thank you card that was printed upside down. But regardless, it was quite nice of them to include it. Looking at the front of the box, they actually misspelled the Odd Ones Out. Or maybe they didn't. It's weirdly inconsistent with his channel, website, book, and even, well, Kickstarter itself. Other than that, the front looks nice, but the back has some notable issues. One of the big ones is how surprisingly empty this feels, especially in this space right here. To fill in that space, they could have readjusted the component section, or quite possibly just put an image there, like this one. Speaking of components and reading what's actually in there, I'm quite glad it comes with 1 instructions. But as we go forth, there will be a lot, and I mean a lot, of either typos, misspellings, or small grammar issues that somehow got past the people. Such as YouTube. And yes, the T in YouTube is capitalized. Or it's supposed to be. But we're going to look at how to play the game in a bit, and so first let's open it up with these lovely magnet latches. Now the game mat is something you'll be staring at for a majority of the game, so it's actually disappointing with how it turned out. Like with the rest of this project. Starting with the game mat itself, it's actually printed crookedly. And the middle of the mat is actually off center, and the image quality is inconsistent throughout it. Also, this image isn't finished, and the one that they used here is weirdly inconsistent with the stylistic design of the, well, previous one. The few bits of color that they actually use on the mat are actually quite sickening in my opinion, as they use dark reds and greens that really contrast with the bright blue matte. The feeling I'm getting is that this piece of the game was honestly just an afterthought, and/or no one bothered to actually look at the darn thing before shipping it. But at the very least, when you're not playing the game, I suppose you can use this as a mousepad. Moving on to the cards. Despite the artwork looking nice, they're really hard to shuffle. The included figurines had a weird smell when I first opened the box, and despite them claiming that this is made from durable vinyl, it's... ugh. If you look closely at it, they just honestly feel like knockoffs of the real thing. You can see where the injection molds connect, and the lackluster paint job makes me feel like this thing is dirty, despite it being straight out of the box. But who cares too much about the pieces? What we do need to know about is the instructions. And good thing this comes with one of them. The front of it is nice, as it's just a reprint of the box. However, the back is where we start to notice some things. The design, artwork, and even graphic design all fall under James Rousen himself, and no one else. So when it comes to game design and design in general, he was the artist, and this was his direct vision. With a special shout out to all of the people who backed the project, we dive on in to the manual. And immediately, the first problem we see is the inverted use of pictures of the game mat. And comparing it to the finished product, I can't tell which image was used incorrectly. Side note, in the November 3rd update on the Kickstarter, they show us a test render of the game mat. However, in the March 5th update, they completely changed the design. Now, I understand that small things change over time, but at the very least, change the pre-order section, or else you're essentially lying to your buyer about, well, what they're getting. But what doesn't work is the font used. Looking closely, there are no commas or even lowercase l's, which makes reading the thing a mess. Actually, my mistake. If you look obscenely close, they are commas. And speaking of font, I guess they forgot to make this 4 right here in the same font that they used previously. But if you look at the actual font itself, Sugary Pancake, you have to purchase the 4. Now either they bought the rights to use this font later, or they're using an illegal version of the font in this commercial product. Another thing to note, besides the inverted stuff, the style of the game pieces on the instruction manual are completely different from one another. Right here they use a 2-dimensional drawing, but then for the rest of them they use the recycled painted renders as we've seen on Kickstarter. Now of course reusing art is fine, but just make sure it actually matches the other works and looks like it's made by the same person. Now when reading the rules, I did notice a lot of people not knowing how to actually play the game, and for some reason a lot of people keep bringing up this game Spoons. Also, I'm gonna note the fact that there isn't a video on how to play this game yet, despite this game being out for months. But anyway, that won't discourage me. So let's read the rules and see how to play this thing. First we place the mods down on the mat, and every person gets 4 cards. The rest are placed face down next to the youngest player. The youngest player draws a card, then passes a card to the left. The youngest player takes a card, passes any card to the left, has 4 of a card. Oh, sorry guys, I was accidentally reading the rules to Spoons. Let me take a look at James's game again. Oh no. Comparing the rules, the main difference between James's game and Spoons is the point system, which seems to be the only thing that's actually messing up the players. After carefully reading the rules, I'd like to point out that they mistyped and said that Harry was worth 2 points instead of 3. On another note, the fact that you need 11 points to win is fine. However, what muddles everything is right here, where it claims if you're already at 10 points, you can only get 1 more and can't go overboard for some reason. I mean, this is the reason why the devil cards in Lamp exist, as they're fail-safes for the point system. Also, the fact that the devil card is worth -1 point unless you have all 4 devil cards, and then you lose 0 points and everyone else's points were set to 0 for some reason. It feels like whoever designed this game tried their hardest to change spoons without knowing what made it fun in the first place. And just like Monopoly, there will be house rules which will effectively change how the game entirely plays. If I were to bust out this game and play it with other people, I'd disregard the point system entirely. But you might then question why I would even purchase James's game in the first place if it's just a modified version of Spoons and the only thing you're going to take out is the point system, which is entirely in his game and not in Spoons, and to that I would say, yeah, I'm wondering that too. But let's move on. Let's just take a look at the expansion pack and see if that's fun. The first thing to note is the packaging, as on the sides of it, expansion pack is printed slightly off compared to one another. Another issue is the artwork that's printed on the front and back of the box. Starting with the back, the picture used is the only thing I would say that signifies this as, quote, white trash butterflies. I mean, the front of the box just looks like a rehash of a drawing that we've never seen before, and applying the marker white trash butterflies to this picture doesn't really seem to fit. I mean, you can change the name of the expansion to anything else, and it would still apply the same to the artwork used. Opening up the well-made box, we get a set of very, very, very tiny instructions that are also printed upside down. And looking closely at them, it looks like they forgot to put a period a lot of the time. Moving forward to the cards themselves, they're actually good quality. And I'm not just talking about the artwork on the cards. They feel good in the hand to slide, so much so that it actually puts to shame the original cards from the box set. Now, perhaps the original cards were just prototypes. I mean, we did see them being produced at the start of the Kickstarter. And when it comes to changing the base game of Spoons, I think these cards do a good enough job on its own. Yeah. However, like Jokers and Poker, I'd honestly just throw out any cards that have points on them, as they'll ruin the fun and flow of the game, as somebody would have to stop and write something down because of those darn points. And the last thing we'll talk about before we head back to the Kickstarter are the holographic cards. And in my opinion, if you have a copy of these, I would immediately change them from the original cards, as the slidiness and the general aesthetic of this is way better. However, it's your call if you'd actually want to pick up a batch of these cards, mainly due to the price. Speaking of that, let's all go back to the Kickstarter and delve deeper in what went wrong with it. Yeah. Now, despite the product being released and me having it in my hands, it turns out that a lot of people haven't received theirs yet, and actually getting a hold of someone on the Odd Ones Out's team is quite hard. What troubles me with how the team is responding goes all the way back to the heart of the game itself, as it's based on another product. In fact, most of the collaborators' responses are just simply acknowledging the game has issues, and they're trying to make it better moving forward. Addressing issues like game-breaking bugs and even telling people how to actually play the game should have arose when making the Kickstarter itself. As if you look closely on the fundraising page, there are numerous typos in the text and even the images used. However, one of the better parts of the Kickstarter were the updates, which, to be fair, they were quite frequent and they tried their best to keep us informed. However, what double troubles me with even saying that is the fact that they leave out certain things when it comes to the, updates. Yes, they did tell us that Target agreed to sell the product at the future date, but they never told us who was actually manufacturing the game. I mean, to certain board gamers and even figurine enthusiasts, it actually matters a lot who manufactured the product, as you can give an image to two companies and they'll provide different quality products, each with their own merit, of course. Side note, considering the quality of the actual board game pieces, I can't imagine how the actual golden figurine looks like. I mean, to sell us the board game pieces, they painted the figures, and with this image right here, it's actually a 3D render. Man, I feel sorry for the people who paid $300 for that. But going back to the game itself, and after looking into it, the only time the company is mentioned throughout the updates is here, in this GIF. And after looking into who that company is, I started to think about a few things. When your game isn't even finished, citing the numerous typos, the inconsistent art design, the game-breaking instructions, and even the concept of the product as a whole, I'm honestly wondering how they got the team behind Cards Against Humanity to actually produce this thing. But with this whole endeavor seemingly going down the drain, where could James go from here? Well, let's take a look. Despite a few month delay, I'm actually glad I have the product in my hands. However, citing the many problems I had with the product, I honestly wish it was pushed back a few more months, as again, in my opinion, there was a lot that needed to be fixed. When it comes to slapping your brand on a board game, it's best to assume good faith of the author, and that they actually had some say in the product itself. However, with most of the issues I found, typos, design, and even how to play the game, in my opinion, it honestly feels like James himself was either disinterested or perhaps not even that involved with the product itself. Looking at his book that was released last year, it currently stands on permanent discount, with all of these stores trying to push inventory with the many unsold copies. And in my review of it, it turned out that it was mostly just previously made content, with little adding to the venture.
It's a collection of stories and opinions of mine, some of which I've already made into videos, and some that are completely original new stories. Like one chapter is all about the science fair, and yeah, it is the same story I used in the YouTube video.
And you can say the same thing with the board game, noting that it's a broken copy of Spoon, so at the very least you can say with James's products, he's at least being consistent. But let's think of it from his perspective. At the time, he was a 22-year-old with a quite sizable fan base whom got approached by investors and publishers, and he probably didn't know how to vet out quality partners. And being new to the entertainment industry, he is bound to make some mistakes when putting his brand on merchandise. However, there are times where he's able to produce quality products that I'd actually recommend. And when I first learned that James was creating a board game, I was excited and amazed that someone would dare making something so risky. And so I immediately backed the project as I had faith in his brand and even him as a person. However, what came out of it was lackluster, disappointing, and even downright disgraceful. Now that the Kickstarter is over and His team is still trying to give people Spoon's James edition. I hope him and his team take a closer look at what they created, as right now the game is not even worth buying at all until they fix all the major issues. Good thing they're not shipping this to Tart. Oh. And I hope with this video you can understand that I'm not mad at James for creating a board game. I'm just honestly disappointed with how it turned out. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you at VidCon 2019. But for now, you can subscribe to enjoy more content. But until next time, see you another time, and have a good